Winston Churchill, a name etched in the annals of history, evokes a myriad of emotions and opinions. He stands as a colossal figure of the 20th century, his life a tapestry woven with threads of brilliance, bravery, and unwavering resolve. Yet beneath the surface of this celebrated leader lies a complex and controversial figure whose actions continue to ignite debate and scrutiny. This video delves into the life and legacy of Winston Churchill, exploring the triumphs that cemented his place as a revered statesman and the shadows that cast doubt on his heroic image. Prepare to embark on a captivating journey through time as we unravel the multifaceted legacy of this iconic figure. Born into a world on the cusp of transformation, Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill's path was forever intertwined with the tumultuous events of the 20th century. From the twilight years of the British Empire to the rise of totalitarian regimes, his life spanned an era of unprecedented upheaval and change. His early years were marked by both privilege and adversity, shaping the character that would later define his leadership. The son of Lord Randolph Churchill, a prominent politician, and Jenny Jerome, an American socialite, Churchill's upbringing exposed him to the corridors of power and the complexities of international affairs. However, his privileged background did not shield him from personal struggles. His strained relationship with his parents, particularly his distant father, cast a long shadow over his early years. His experiences at Harrow School, a prestigious boarding school, were marked by academic challenges and a sense of not quite fitting in. Yet it was during these formative years that Churchill's tenacity and determination began to emerge. He developed a passion for history and literature, immersing himself in the stories of great leaders and military strategists, perhaps finding inspiration in their triumphs and failures. Driven by a thirst for adventure and a desire to prove himself, Churchill embarked on a military career that would take him to the far reaches of the British Empire. From Cuba to India to South Africa, he witnessed firsthand the realities of war and the complexities of colonial rule. These experiences, though fraught with danger and moral ambiguity, honed his leadership skills and provided invaluable insights into the dynamics of global power. Churchill's early life was a crucible in which his character was forged, shaping the man who would later lead Britain through its darkest hour. His experiences instilled in him a deep sense of duty, an unwavering belief in the importance of courage and resilience, and a profound understanding of the human condition, both its potential for greatness and its capacity for destruction. Churchill's rise to prominence was anything but predictable. While his lineage and upbringing provided him with access and opportunity, it was his own relentless ambition, honed intellect, and remarkable resilience that propelled him to the forefront of British politics. His early forays into politics were met with both successes and setbacks, revealing a quick wit, a sharp tongue, and an unwavering belief in his own abilities. He navigated the treacherous waters of Westminster with a combination of charm, cunning, and an uncanny ability to anticipate the shifting tides of public opinion. However, it was the cataclysmic events of the Second World War that would truly test his mettle and reveal the depth of his character. As Nazi Germany's shadow loomed large over Europe, Churchill's voice rose above the din of appeasement, urging his nation to stand firm against the encroaching darkness. His appointment as Prime Minister in 1940 came at a moment of profound crisis. France had fallen, the British Expeditionary Force had been evacuated from Dunkirk, and the threat of a German invasion loomed large. It was in this hour of peril that Churchill's leadership shone brightest. His stirring speeches, imbued with a blend of realism and hope, galvanized the British people. "We shall fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing grounds, we shall fight in the fields and in the streets, we shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender," he declared, his words echoing across a nation bracing for battle. Churchill's wartime leadership was characterized by his unwavering resolve, his strategic acumen, and his ability to forge a united front against a common enemy. He cultivated crucial alliances with the United States and the Soviet Union, recognizing that victory against the Axis powers would require a concerted global effort. His ability to navigate the complexities of wartime diplomacy, balancing competing interests and forging a path toward a shared objective, proved instrumental in securing the Allied victory. Churchill's entry into politics was almost a foregone conclusion, given his family's legacy and his own burning ambition. Elected to Parliament in 1900 at the age of 25, he embarked on a career that would span over 6 decades, witnessing both meteoric rises and crushing defeats. His early years in Parliament were marked by a characteristic blend of audacity and astute observation. He quickly established himself as a formidable orator, his speeches laced with wit, erudition, and a touch of the theatrical that captivated his audiences. Churchill's political ideology during this period was a complex and evolving mix of liberal and conservative impulses. He championed social reforms aimed at improving the lives of the working class while remaining a staunch defender of British imperial interests. His tenure as president of the Board of Trade saw the introduction of groundbreaking legislation, including the establishment of labor exchanges and the regulation of working hours. However, his progressive stance on social issues was often overshadowed by his hawkish views on foreign policy and his unwavering belief in the superiority of the British Empire. His early years in government were also marked by political maneuvering and a willingness to switch allegiances in pursuit of his ambitions. His defection from the Conservative Party to the Liberal Party in 1904, motivated by his opposition to protectionist trade policies, cemented his reputation as a maverick, willing to challenge the status quo and chart his own course. This period of Churchill's life was one of intense learning and growth. He honed his political skills, mastering the art of debate, building alliances, and navigating the often treacherous currents of Westminster. His experiences during these formative years, both the triumphs and the setbacks, shaped his worldview and prepared him for the immense challenges that lay ahead. The outbreak of the First World War in 1914 marked a turning point in Churchill's life and career. As First Lord of the Admiralty, he played a pivotal role in shaping Britain's naval strategy during the early years of the conflict. His energy and dynamism were evident in his efforts to modernize the Royal Navy, recognizing the growing importance of naval aviation and submarine warfare. However, his tenure was also marked by a series of costly miscalculations that tarnished his reputation and cast a long shadow over his legacy. The Gallipoli campaign, a daring but ultimately disastrous attempt to capture the Dardanelles Strait and knock the Ottoman Empire out of the war, stands as a stark example of Churchill's strategic misjudgment. The campaign, conceived by Churchill as a bold stroke that would break the stalemate on the Western Front, quickly devolved into a bloody quagmire, resulting in heavy casualties and strategic failure. The blame for the debacle was widely attributed to Churchill's overconfidence and his failure to adequately assess the risks and complexities of the operation. The Gallipoli campaign had a profound impact on Churchill's career, leading to his demotion and a period of self-imposed exile from government. Yet, it also revealed his resilience and his capacity for learning from his mistakes. Rather than succumbing to despair, Churchill sought redemption on the battlefields of France, serving as an army officer on the Western Front. This experience, witnessing firsthand the horrors of trench warfare and the sacrifices made by ordinary soldiers, left an indelible mark on his psyche, deepening his understanding of the human cost of conflict. The interwar years were a period of introspection and reinvention for Churchill. Relegated to the political wilderness, he used his time away from government to write, travel, and reflect on the lessons learned from the First World War. His writings from this period, including his multi-volume memoir, The World Crisis, provided a candid and often self-critical account of his role in the conflict. Churchill's political fortunes began to revive in the 1930s, as the threat of Nazi Germany cast a growing shadow over Europe. His warnings about the dangers of appeasement and the need for rearmament, often dismissed as warmongering by his political opponents, proved tragically prescient. As Hitler's ambitions became increasingly clear, Churchill's voice grew louder, urging his nation to prepare for the storm that was brewing. During these years, Churchill honed his skills as a statesman, strategist and communicator, he immersed himself in the study of military history, recognizing the importance of strategic thinking and preparedness in an increasingly volatile world. He cultivated relationships with key figures in the United States, recognizing that any future conflict would require a strong transatlantic alliance. And he continued to refine his oratory, developing a powerful and evocative style that would later rally a nation at war. By the eve of the Second World War, Churchill had transformed himself from a controversial figure, often viewed as a relic of a bygone era, into a respected elder statesman. His experience, wisdom, and unwavering resolve proving invaluable as Britain faced its darkest hour. The year 1940 dawned with a sense of foreboding, the shadow of war looming large over Europe. Nazi Germany, emboldened by its conquest of Poland, had unleashed its blitzkrieg across the continent, shattering the fragile peace and plunging the world into chaos. For Winston Churchill, the moment he had long anticipated and dreaded had arrived. Appointed Prime Minister on May 10, 1940, he assumed the mantle of leadership at Britain's darkest hour. France, Britain's stalwart ally, teetered on the brink of collapse, its armies overrun by the German onslaught. The British Expeditionary Force, dispatched to aid the French, found itself trapped on the beaches of Dunkirk, facing annihilation or capture. The very survival of Britain, facing the might of the Nazi war machine alone, hung precariously in the balance. Churchill, however, refused to yield to despair. He understood the gravity of the situation, the magnitude of the threat facing his nation, yet he remained undeterred. His first address to Parliament as Prime Minister, delivered on May 13, 1940, was a masterpiece of wartime oratory, a stirring call to arms that would echo through history. "I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat," he declared, his words ringing with raw honesty and unwavering resolve. "We have before us an ordeal of the most grievous kind. We have before us many, many long months of struggle and of suffering." Churchill's words, devoid of empty promises or false hope, resonated deeply with the British people. He offered them not an easy path to victory, but a shared sacrifice, a collective determination to resist tyranny at any cost. Churchill's leadership in those early, uncertain months of the war was nothing short of transformative. He became the embodiment of British defiance, his bulldog tenacity, and unwavering belief in ultimate victory, providing a beacon of hope in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. The Voice of Defiance. Churchill understood that the Battle of Britain, as it came to be known, was not merely a military campaign, but a battle for the hearts and minds of the British people. He recognized the importance of morale, of maintaining a sense of unity and purpose in the face of relentless bombing raids and the ever-present threat of invasion. Churchill's mastery of language, his ability to articulate the stakes of the conflict in terms both grand and relatable, proved to be one of his greatest assets. His wartime speeches, broadcast over the radio waves and into the homes of every British citizen, became legendary. They were a source of information, inspiration, and comfort, reminding the British people that they were not alone in their struggle. "We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be," he declared in his June 4, 1940 speech. "We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender." Churchill's words, imbued with a Churchillian blend of defiance, determination, and a touch of poetic grandeur, resonated deeply with a nation facing its darkest hour. He spoke not just as a politician, but as a fellow citizen, sharing in the dangers and sacrifices of war. He visited bombed-out cities, offering words of comfort to those who had lost everything. He toured factories and shipyards, rallying workers to increase production of vital war materials. Churchill understood that victory in a total war required a total national effort, a mobilization of every resource and every citizen. His wartime leadership transcended political divisions, uniting Britons from all walks of life in a common cause. He became a symbol of resistance, not just for Britain, but for all those fighting against tyranny and oppression around the world. His voice, booming with defiance, became a source of strength and inspiration for millions. The architect of victory. Churchill's wartime leadership extended far beyond his stirring speeches and unwavering resolve. He was a skilled strategist, a shrewd observer of international affairs, and a tireless advocate for British interests on the world stage. Recognizing the global nature of the conflict, Churchill prioritized forging and maintaining strong alliances, particularly with the United States and the Soviet Union. He cultivated a close personal relationship with President Franklin D. Roosevelt, securing vital American aid and support for the Allied war effort. Churchill's relationship with Soviet leader Joseph Stalin was more complex, marked by a mix of pragmatism, suspicion, and a shared determination to defeat Nazi Germany. Churchill understood the importance of the Soviet Union's contribution to the war effort, but he also harbored deep reservations about Stalin's communist ideology and expansionist ambitions. Despite these ideological differences, Churchill recognized that the defeat of Nazi Germany remained paramount, and that a united front was essential to achieving that goal. Throughout the war, Churchill played an active role in shaping Allied strategy. He was a constant presence at wartime conferences, advocating for British interests and working to coordinate military operations across multiple fronts. He pushed for the opening of a second front in Europe, understanding the need to relieve pressure on the Soviet Union and hasten the defeat of Germany. Churchill's strategic vision, while not always shared by his allies, was instrumental in guiding the Allied war effort to ultimate victory. His ability to balance competing priorities, navigate complex geopolitical realities, and maintain a united front among disparate allies cemented his reputation as one of the great wartime leaders of the 20th century. The Shadow of Gallipoli. While Winston Churchill's leadership during World War II earned him a place among history's most revered figures, his legacy remains intertwined with a series of controversial decisions that continue to spark debate and scrutiny. The Gallipoli campaign, a disastrous military endeavor during World War I, stands as a stark reminder of the human cost of strategic miscalculations and the enduring weight of leadership. As First Lord of the Admiralty, Churchill championed the Gallipoli campaign, envisioning a bold stroke that would knock the Ottoman Empire out of the war and secure a vital supply route to Russia. The plan called for a naval assault on the Dardanelles Strait, followed by a land invasion of the Gallipoli Peninsula. However, the campaign, launched in April 1915, quickly devolved into a costly quagmire. The Ottoman defenses proved far more resilient than anticipated, and the Allied forces, plagued by poor planning, inadequate supplies, and fierce resistance, found themselves bogged down in trench warfare reminiscent of the Western Front. The Gallipoli campaign became a bloody stalemate, claiming the lives of tens of thousands of Allied soldiers, including many from Australia and New Zealand, who fought with great courage and sacrifice. As the casualties mounted and the strategic objectives remained elusive, criticism of Churchill's role in the campaign grew louder. His political opponents accused him of recklessness, of prioritizing a risky gamble over more prudent courses of action. The Gallipoli campaign, widely perceived as a military and political disaster, led to Churchill's demotion from the Admiralty and cast a long shadow over his reputation. While Churchill defended his actions, arguing that the campaign had been strategically sound but poorly executed, he also acknowledged the heavy price paid by those who fought and died at Gallipoli. The experience left an indelible mark on Churchill, shaping his understanding of the complexities of war and the importance of careful planning, clear objectives, and a realistic assessment of risks. The Second World War presented unprecedented moral dilemmas as the lines between combatants and civilians blurred and the horrors of total war reached new heights. Churchill's wartime leadership, while lauded for its unwavering resolve, was not without its share of controversial decisions, particularly regarding the bombing of German cities. The bombing of Dresden, a cultural center in eastern Germany, in February 1945, remains a particularly contentious issue. The Allied bombing raids, carried out over several days, unleashed a firestorm that devastated the city, claiming the lives of hundreds of thousands of civilians. The Dresden bombing sparked a debate about the morality of area bombing, a tactic employed mainly by the Allies during the war, which targeted civilian populations and infrastructure in an effort to break enemy morale and cripple their war effort. Churchill's role in the Dresden bombing has been the subject of much scrutiny. While he did not personally order the raid, he approved the overall bombing strategy and defended its use as a necessary evil to hasten the end of the war. Churchill argued that the bombing of German cities, while regrettable, was justified given the atrocities committed by the Nazi regime and the need to cripple Germany's war industry. However, critics argued that the Dresden bombing, which occurred in the waning months of the war, served little strategic purpose and amounted to an act of wanton destruction. They pointed to the high civilian death toll and the city's cultural significance as evidence that the raid was disproportionate and morally indefensible. The bombing of Dresden and the broader debate about the morality of area bombing continue to resonate today, raising questions about the limits of warfare, the ethical dilemmas faced by leaders in times of conflict, and the enduring legacy of total war. Winston Churchill's legacy is inextricably linked to the British Empire, an institution he revered and defended throughout his life. Born into a world where British imperial power was at its zenith, Churchill inherited a worldview shaped by colonialism, a belief in the superiority of Western civilization and the right of the British Empire to rule over vast territories and diverse populations. Churchill's early career, which included military service in India, Sudan, and South Africa, exposed him to the realities of colonial rule, both its perceived benefits and its inherent brutality. He viewed the British Empire as a force for good, bringing order, civilization, and progress to the far corners of the globe. However, his views on colonialism, while widely shared among the British elite of his era, stand in stark contrast to modern sensibilities. Churchill's staunch defense of the empire often manifested in policies that were at best paternalistic and at worst oppressive. He opposed Indian independence, viewing it as a threat to British interests and a betrayal of Britain's imperial mission. His handling of the Bengal famine of 1943, which claimed the lives of millions of Indians, has been widely criticized as callous and indifferent, with some historians arguing that his wartime policies exacerbated the crisis. Churchill's legacy in the former colonies remains a complex and contested issue. While some acknowledge his wartime leadership and his role in defeating Nazi Germany, many others view him as a symbol of imperial oppression, his legacy forever tainted by his support for colonialism and his often dismissive attitude towards the aspirations of those he considered subjects of the British Crown. The dismantling of the British Empire after World War II marked the end of an era. But the legacy of colonialism, with its enduring impact on global power dynamics, economic inequality, and racial relations, continues to shape the world today. Winston Churchill's place in history is secure. He stands as a towering figure of the 20th century, a wartime leader who rallied his nation against tyranny and helped shape the post-war world. His courage, eloquence, and unwavering belief in the values of freedom and democracy continue to inspire generations. However, Churchill's legacy is not without its shadows, his accomplishments forever intertwined with a series of controversial decisions and beliefs that challenge the heroic image often associated with his name. The Gallipoli campaign, the bombing of Dresden, his stance on colonialism, these are but a few examples of the complex and often troubling aspects of Churchill's legacy. While some argue that these actions should be viewed through the lens of the time, acknowledging the prevailing attitudes and the exigencies of war, others contend that they reveal a flawed and at times ruthless leader, his decisions driven by a belief in his own righteousness and a willingness to prioritize British interests above all else. Churchill's legacy, like the man himself, is a study in contradictions. He was a brilliant strategist and a gifted orator, capable of inspiring millions with his words and actions. Yet he could also be stubborn, impulsive, and blinded by his own convictions. He was a product of his time, his worldview shaped by the privileges and prejudices of his class and era. Assessing Churchill's legacy requires a nuanced and balanced approach, one that acknowledges both his triumphs and his failings, his moments of greatness and his lapses in judgment. It demands a willingness to grapple with the complexities of history, to recognize that even the most revered figures are not immune from criticism or scrutiny. Ultimately, Churchill's legacy serves as a reminder that history is not a simplistic narrative of heroes and villains, but rather a tapestry woven from the threads of human ambition, idealism, fallibility, and the enduring struggle for a better world. Behind the facade of unwavering strength and resolute optimism, Winston Churchill grappled with a deeply personal adversary throughout his life: depression. He famously referred to his periods of profound melancholy as the Black Dog, a constant companion that cast a long shadow over his otherwise illustrious existence. Even during his finest hour, as he rallied a nation against the Nazi threat, Churchill privately battled bouts of despair that threatened to consume him. The origins of Churchill's depression can be traced back to his childhood, marked by a strained relationship with his parents, particularly his distant and disapproving father. The weight of expectation, coupled with a sense of inadequacy, instilled in him a deep-seated insecurity that he carried throughout his life. His experiences in war, witnessing firsthand the horrors of combat and the fragility of human life, undoubtedly exacerbated his melancholic tendencies. Churchill's depression manifested in periods of profound sadness, lethargy, and a loss of interest in the world around him. His energy and enthusiasm, so characteristic of his public persona, would evaporate, leaving him withdrawn and despondent. During these dark episodes, he found solace in painting, writing, and the company of his closest confidants, who provided a lifeline of support and understanding. Despite the debilitating nature of his condition, Churchill rarely spoke publicly about his struggles with depression. In an era when mental illness was often stigmatized and misunderstood, he feared that any admission of weakness would undermine his leadership and erode public confidence. Instead, he bore his burden in silence, masking his internal turmoil with a stoic exterior and a relentless work ethic. Winston Churchill's legendary capacity for alcohol was as much a part of his public image as his cigar and his V for Victory sign. He famously began his days with a weak whiskey and soda, his consumption escalating throughout the day and into the evening. While his drinking habits were often a source of amusement and even admiration, they also masked a more complicated relationship with alcohol, one that provided both solace and escape from the immense pressures he faced. For Churchill, alcohol was both a social lubricant and a coping mechanism. It eased his social anxieties, allowing him to charm and disarm even his staunchest critics. It also provided a temporary respite from the burdens of leadership, dulling the sharp edges of stress and responsibility that came with guiding a nation through war and peace. However, Churchill's relationship with alcohol was not simply one of indulgence or excess. It was also a means of self-medication, a way to numb the emotional pain and psychological turmoil that plagued him throughout his life. His periods of heavy drinking often coincided with bouts of depression, suggesting that he used alcohol to alleviate the symptoms of his mental illness. The constant strain of leadership, the weight of wartime decisions, and the ever-present threat of failure took a heavy toll on Churchill's mental and physical health. His family and close advisors recognized the dangers of his drinking habits, expressing concern about the impact on his health and judgment. Clementine, Churchill's wife and confidant, played a crucial role in moderating his alcohol consumption, often persuading him to limit his intake and prioritize his well-being. While Churchill's drinking habits never reached the point of debilitating addiction, they undoubtedly affected his health and at times his decision-making. His legacy, like his life, is a complex tapestry woven from threads of brilliance, resilience, and human frailty, reminding us that even the most iconic figures are not immune to the struggles that mark the human experience. Winston Churchill's legacy continues to be a subject of intense scrutiny and debate in the 21st century. Once considered a near mythical figure, the embodiment of wartime courage and unwavering resolve, Churchill is now viewed through a more critical lens, his actions and beliefs assessed against the backdrop of evolving social values and historical understanding. This reassessment, far from diminishing his stature, has only served to highlight the complexities of his character, revealing a man who was both a product of his time and an extraordinary individual who transcended the limitations of his era. Modern historians and biographers have delved deeper into Churchill's life, uncovering both the flaws and the brilliance that shaped his worldview and influenced his decisions. His personal struggles with depression and his often excessive drinking habits, once largely glossed over, are now recognized as integral parts of his story, humanizing the icon and providing a more nuanced understanding of the man behind the myth. Churchill's legacy is further complicated by his views on race and empire, which were deeply rooted in the colonial mindset of his time. His belief in the superiority of Western civilization and his staunch defense of the British Empire, while widely shared among the British elite of his era, strike a discordant note in a world grappling with the legacies of colonialism and the ongoing struggle for racial justice. Despite these controversies, Churchill's reputation as a wartime leader remains largely intact. His ability to rally a nation facing its darkest hour, his unwavering belief in ultimate victory, and his stirring rhetoric that galvanized a generation continue to resonate with audiences today. Reckoning with Empire Churchill in the age of decolonization. In the decades since World War II, the world has undergone a profound transformation, marked by the dismantling of colonial empires, the rise of new global powers, and a growing awareness of the injustices inflicted by colonialism. This historical shift has prompted a reassessment of figures like Winston Churchill, whose legacies are inextricably linked to the rise and fall of European empires. Churchill's staunch defense of the British Empire, his belief in its civilizing mission, and his opposition to independence movements in India and other colonies have drawn sharp criticism from historians and activists who view him as a symbol of imperial oppression. His role in suppressing anti-colonial movements, often through the use of force, has led some to question his commitment to freedom and democracy, arguing that his vision of these ideals did not extend to those he considered subjects of the British Crown. The Bengal famine of 1943, which claimed the lives of millions of Indians during World War II, has become a focal point of criticism directed at Churchill. Some historians argue that his wartime policies, including the diversion of food supplies from India to Britain, exacerbated the famine, and that his response to the crisis was inadequate and indifferent. Churchill's defenders counter that his actions should be judged within the context of his time, arguing that his views on empire were widely shared among the British elite, and that his wartime decisions were driven by the need to defeat Nazi Germany. However, the debate over Churchill's legacy in the former colonies is likely to continue as long as the wounds of colonialism remain unhealed. A timeless legacy, Churchill's relevance in the 21st century. Despite the controversies surrounding his name, Winston Churchill's legacy continues to resonate in the 21st century, albeit in a more complex and nuanced way. His wartime leadership, his eloquence, and his unwavering belief in the values of freedom and democracy continue to inspire admiration and respect, even among those who acknowledge his flaws. Churchill's ability to articulate the stakes of complex issues in clear and compelling language, his use of humor and wit to disarm opponents and rally supporters, and his unwavering belief in the power of human agency to shape the course of history. These qualities continue to hold relevance in a world facing new challenges and uncertainties. However, Churchill's legacy also serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder that even the most revered figures are products of their time, and that their actions and beliefs should be assessed within the historical context in which they lived. His flaws, particularly his views on race and empire, should not be ignored or excused, but rather examined as part of a larger historical narrative that seeks to understand the complexities of the past and their impact on the present. Ultimately, Churchill's legacy is not a static monument to be revered or reviled, but rather a dynamic force that continues to shape conversations about leadership, morality, and the enduring struggle for a better world. By engaging with the complexities of his life and legacy, we can gain a deeper understanding of the forces that shaped the 20th century and continue to influence the world today. The Imperfect Giant. As we draw the curtain on this exploration of Winston Churchill's life and legacy, we are left with a profound sense of the man's complexity. He was not a singular entity, easily categorized as hero or villain, but rather a tapestry of contradictions, a figure both inspiring and troubling, brilliant and flawed. Churchill's journey from the privileged halls of Blenheim Palace to the battlefields of war-torn Europe reveals a man shaped by circumstance, ambition, and an unwavering belief in his own destiny. He was a man of immense talent and intellect, a master orator who could stir the souls of millions with his words, a strategic thinker who navigated the treacherous currents of global conflict. Yet he was also a man of his time, imbued with the prejudices and blind spots of his era. His views on race and empire are a stark reminder of the dark undercurrents of colonialism that stained the 20th century. To understand Churchill is to grapple with this duality, to acknowledge both the light and shadow that defined his path. He was not a saint, nor was he a monster, but rather a human being thrust onto the world stage, tasked with making impossible decisions in the face of unimaginable adversity. His triumphs, particularly his leadership during World War II, should not blind us to his failings, nor should his shortcomings diminish the magnitude of his achievements. Churchill's life was a testament to the power of resilience, the enduring strength of the human spirit in the face of overwhelming odds. He faced personal and professional setbacks, periods of self-doubt and despair, yet he never surrendered to defeat. His indomitable will, his refusal to accept anything less than victory became his defining characteristic, inspiring a nation and shaping the course of history. A legacy forged in the crucible of history. Winston Churchill's legacy is not a static monument frozen in time, but rather a living entity, constantly evolving as new generations grapple with his triumphs and failures. His story continues to spark debate and inspire reflection, challenging us to confront the complexities of the past and to examine our own assumptions about leadership, morality, and the human condition. In an age marked by uncertainty and rapid change, Churchill's life offers valuable lessons about the importance of courage, conviction, and the enduring power of words. His ability to articulate a vision, to rally a nation behind a common purpose, remains a testament to the power of leadership in times of crisis. Yet his legacy also serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder that even the most well-intentioned leaders are capable of error, and that the pursuit of noble goals can sometimes lead down morally ambiguous paths. As we move further away from the events that shaped Churchill's life, it is essential that we resist the temptation to sanitize his story, to transform him into a one-dimensional caricature of heroism. To truly understand Churchill, we must embrace his complexities, acknowledge his flaws, and recognize that his greatness lay not in his infallibility, but in his ability to learn from his mistakes, to adapt to changing circumstances, and to never waver in his belief that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit could prevail. Winston Churchill was a man of his time, but his story transcends any particular era. It is a story about the enduring power of ideas, the importance of leadership in shaping the course of history, and the enduring capacity for both good and evil that resides within us all. As we navigate the challenges of the 21st century, may we all strive to learn from his example, embracing his courage and conviction while remaining mindful of the complexities and contradictions that shaped his extraordinary life.